This black bitch thinks she owns the place. Sergeant Derek Miller slams his patrol car into drive, tires screeching as he accelerates toward the black woman jogging confidently through Piedmont Park. She moves like she belongs here, in this affluent neighborhood where million-dollar homes line manicured streets. "Let's strip search her right here in public," Johnson sneers, cracking his knuckles. "Show everyone what happens to uppity nit—" "Do it slow," Miller interrupts, eyes fixed on his target. "I want her to beg." Dr. Maya Richardson adjusts her ponytail, completely unaware that two predators are racing toward her. She runs the same route she's taken for 3 years, the route that has always felt safe. Her hidden jewelry catches the morning light through her running belt, a $75,000 Cartier watch and state ID that could destroy Miller's life. But Miller has no idea what he's about to rip apart. What happens when a predator attacks the most powerful woman in Georgia? Maya Richardson's feet hit the pavement in perfect rhythm as she glides through the tree-lined streets of Ansley Park. Each stride carries the confidence of someone who has never questioned her right to be anywhere. The morning air is crisp, filled with the scent of magnolias and the distant hum of lawnmowers tending to million-dollar estates. She waves to Mrs. Henderson, the elderly white woman watering her prize-winning roses. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" Maya calls out, receiving a warm smile in return. This is her world, a place where her Harvard medical degree and 15 years as a pediatric surgeon have earned her respect, where her marriage to the governor has elevated her to near royalty status. Her Apple Watch buzzes with a text from her husband. "Love you, baby. Be safe out there." Maya smiles, thinking how unnecessary that warning seems. She has jogged this route 847 times in the past 3 years. She knows every crack in the sidewalk, every friendly face behind every window. This neighborhood embraces her like a warm blanket. The mansions give way to the entrance of Piedmont Park, where the real beauty begins. Maya's pace quickens as she approaches her favorite stretch, the winding path that circles the lake, past the tennis courts where Atlanta's elite gather for their morning matches. The sound of tennis balls creates a percussion that matches her breathing. She pauses at her usual stretching spot, a wooden bench positioned perfectly to catch the morning sun. Maya places one foot on the bench, leaning forward to stretch her hamstrings. Her movements are graceful, deliberate, the result of years of disciplined fitness routines. She feels powerful here, untouchable even. "Another perfect morning in paradise," she whispers to herself, adjusting her ponytail. Her reflection on the lake's surface shows a woman in complete control of her destiny. The expensive athletic wear, Lululemon top, Nike running shorts, $200 shoes, speaks to a life of privilege, but Maya has earned every thread through years of sacrifice and achievement. What she doesn't see is the patrol car that has been following her for the past 4 blocks. 300 yards behind her, Miller adjusts his binoculars for a better view. "Look at her all high and mighty," he mutters to Johnson, "stretching like she's putting on a damn show." His voice carries the resentment of a man who has watched too many successful black people move through spaces he believes they haven't earned. "Rich bitch probably thinks we work for her," Johnson agrees, his own insecurities bubbling to the surface. Both men have spent their careers feeling overlooked, underpaid, and underappreciated. Seeing Maya's obvious success triggers something dark in their minds, a need to remind her of what they perceive as the natural order. Miller starts the engine. Time to bring her back down to earth. Maya completes her stretching routine, completely unaware of the conversation taking place in the patrol car. She checks her fitness tracker, heart rate optimal, pace perfect for her planned 5-mile run. Her body feels strong today, energized by the knowledge that she's exactly where she belongs. She begins to run again, her form textbook perfect. Years of competitive running in medical school trained her body to move with efficiency and grace. The path ahead is familiar, comforting, past the playground where wealthy children laugh under their nanny's watchful eyes, around the curve where the morning joggers nod in silent camaraderie. Maya's breathing settles into a meditative rhythm. This is her therapy, her escape from the pressures of being the governor's wife. Here she's not managing charity galas or smiling for cameras. She's simply Maya, running toward whatever the day might bring. Her phone buzzes with a reminder about tonight's education fundraiser. She thinks about the speech she'll give, the donors she'll charm, the policies she'll advocate for. Maya Richardson has always been a woman who gets things done, who uses her privilege to lift others up. She has no idea that in less than 10 minutes, she'll need every ounce of that strength just to survive. The patrol car accelerates. Maya notices the engine sound growing louder but assumes it's just another vehicle passing through the park. She steps slightly to the right, giving the car room to pass. Good citizens share the road, after all. Her mother raised her to be considerate, to never assume conflict where none exists. But the engine sound doesn't fade. Instead, it grows closer. Maya glances over her shoulder and sees the black and white patrol car matching her pace about 50 yards back. Her first thought is protective. Perhaps they're keeping an eye on the park for everyone's safety. She feels a warm appreciation for Atlanta's finest doing their job. Miller's radio crackles again. Unit 47 resident called in a second complaint. Says the subject is now acting suspicious near the children's playground. Approach with caution. Copy that, Miller responds, his voice already charged with anticipation. He knows this call is fabricated. No resident has called twice. But the radio creates the paper trail he needs, the justification for what's about to happen. Maya continues running, her mind wandering to her daughter's upcoming college graduation. She pictures the pride on her husband's face, the photos they'll take, the family dinner they've planned. Life has been generous to the Richardson family, and Maya never takes that for granted. The morning sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across the park's perfectly manicured lawns. Maya feels the familiar endorphin rush beginning to kick in, that natural high that has kept her addicted to running since college. Her ponytail bounces rhythmically as she navigates the gentle curves of the path. Other morning exercisers are beginning to populate the park. Dog walkers with their golden retrievers, elderly couples taking their constitutional young mothers pushing expensive strollers. This is Maya's tribe. Her community of people who understand that fitness and self-care are investments in a better life. She waves to Dr. Patterson from Emory University, who recognizes her and returns a respectful nod. Maya has given guest lectures at his medical school, sharing her expertise in pediatric cardiology with the next generation of doctors. These casual encounters remind her of the professional respect she commands in this city. The patrol car's engine grows louder still. Maya checks her watch again. 6:47 a.m. Perfect timing to complete her 5-mile loop and return home for coffee with her husband before his morning briefings begin. She mentally reviews her own schedule. Hospital rounds at 9 a.m., lunch with the education committee at noon, charity board meeting at 3 p.m., the fundraiser tonight at 7 p.m. Her life runs like clockwork, every detail planned and executed with surgical precision. Maya Richardson is a woman who controls her environment, who shapes outcomes through careful planning and relentless execution. The sound of the patrol car's door slamming shut behind her changes everything. "Ma'am, stop right there!" The command cuts through the morning air like a blade, so sharp and unexpected that Maya stumbles slightly before catching her balance. She turns, pulling out her earbuds, confusion replacing the peaceful meditation that had been guiding her run. 2 white officers approach her with the purposeful stride of men who have found exactly what they were looking for. "What are you doing here?" Miller's voice carries the authority of 15 years wearing a badge, but underneath lurks something hungrier, the tone of a predator who has found isolated prey. His hand rests casually on his weapon as he approaches Maya, each step calculated to intimidate. Maya removes her earbuds completely, her breathing still elevated from running, but now tinged with confusion. "I'm sorry, officer. Is there a problem? I'm just jogging." "We received reports of suspicious activity in this area," Johnson adds, flanking Maya's left side in a maneuver they've practiced countless times. The 2 officers move like wolves, instinctively creating angles that prevent escape while maintaining the illusion of a routine police encounter. Maya looks around the peaceful park setting. Families beginning to arrive for morning walks, tennis players warming up on distant courts, the familiar rhythm of a community starting its day. Suspicious activity? I don't understand. I run here every morning. Miller's eyes narrow as he studies her expensive athletic wear, the confident way she holds herself. the clear assumption in her voice that this interaction will end reasonably. Everything about Maya Richardson screams privilege to him, and that privilege feels like a personal insult. Every morning, huh? Miller circles her slowly, forcing Maya to turn to keep him in view. You live around here? The question hangs in the air like a trap. Maya hesitates, not because she's uncertain, but because she's finally beginning to understand that her honest answer might not be what these officers want to hear. Her instincts, honed by years of navigating professional and political environments, tell her that something is fundamentally wrong with this encounter. I live in the city, Maya responds carefully, using the diplomatic vagueness that has served her well in countless political situations. She doesn't want to lie, but revealing that she lives in the governor's mansion feels like information these men might not handle appropriately. Johnson snorts with derision. The city, right, what part of the city? Maya's heart rate, which had been returning to normal after her run, begins to climb again. These officers aren't asking routine questions. They're fishing for something, looking for a reason to escalate an encounter that should never have begun in the first place. Officers, I'm not sure what this is about, but I'd like to continue my run if that's all right. Maya's voice maintains its professional calm, but she takes a small step backward, creating space. Her medical training has taught her to recognize when a situation is deteriorating, and every instinct tells her that these men are looking for conflict. Miller moves forward, closing the distance Maya tried to create. You don't get to decide when this conversation is over. We're conducting an investigation. An investigation of what, exactly? Maya's question is reasonable, logical, the kind of inquiry any citizen has the right to make. But in Miller's mind, it represents defiance, an uppity attitude that needs correcting. Turn around and place your hands on the patrol car. The command explodes into the morning air with such sudden force that a nearby jogger stops mid-stride, turning to stare at the developing scene. Maya's confusion transforms into something approaching an alarm. I'm sorry, what? Am I under arrest? What's the charge? Miller's face hardens with the righteous anger of a man whose authority has been questioned. In his 15-year career, he has learned that compliance comes through intimidation, that questioning his orders represents a challenge to the natural hierarchy he believes keeps society functioning. Failure to cooperate with a police investigation, suspicious behavior in a public area. Do you want me to add resisting arrest to that list? Maya's hands begin to tremble slightly, not with fear, but with the dawning realization that she has encountered something genuinely dangerous. These officers aren't interested in public safety or legitimate law enforcement. They're interested in power, in putting her in her place, in teaching her a lesson about where she belongs. I am cooperating, Maya says, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I've answered your questions. I'm not resisting anything. I simply asked what I'm being accused of, which is my legal right. The mention of legal rights triggers something dark in Miller's expression. Citizens who know their rights represent the enemy. Educated troublemakers who think they can outsmart the badge, who need to be reminded of the reality of power on the street. Your legal rights? Miller laughs, a sound devoid of humor. Lady, your legal rights are whatever I say they are right now. A small crowd begins to gather. Dog walkers slow their pace, joggers alter their routes to get a better view, tennis players on nearby courts pause their warm-ups. The morning routine of Piedmont Park adjusts itself around the developing drama, drawn by the universal human fascination with conflict. Maya notices the gathering audience and feels a moment of relief. Surely these officers won't escalate things further in front of witnesses. Surely the presence of other people will restore some measure of sanity to this encounter. She couldn't be more wrong. Miller sees the crowd differently, as an audience for the lesson he's about to teach, as witnesses to what happens when people forget their place. His ego, already inflated by years of unchecked authority, swells with the opportunity to demonstrate his power in front of the very community that Maya thinks will protect her. Last chance, Miller announces, loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. Turn around and assume the position, or we'll do this the hard way. Maya's mind races through her options. She could comply and hope this nightmare ends quickly. She could continue to assert her rights and risk escalation. She could reveal her identity and end this immediately. But something tells her that might make things worse, not better. Officer, I don't understand what position you want me to assume. I haven't done anything wrong. Miller's smile turns predatory. Then we'll teach you. Johnson produces zip tie restraints from his belt, the plastic cuffs that leave marks and create the kind of evidence that disappears after a few days. The crowd murmurs with unease, sensing that whatever comes next will cross lines that shouldn't be crossed. Maya Richardson, who woke up this morning as one of the most powerful women in Georgia, is about to learn how quickly privilege can evaporate in the face of unchecked authority and racial hatred. Remove your shoes, now. Miller's command carries the authority of someone who has done this before, who knows exactly how to strip away dignity one piece at a time. Maya stares at him in disbelief, her mind struggling to process how a routine morning jog has escalated to this point. My shoes? Officer, I don't understand why. Because I said so. Miller's hand moves to his baton. We need to check them for contraband. You could be hiding drugs, weapons, anything in those expensive sneakers. Maya looks down at her $200 Nike running shoes, the same pair she's worn on hundreds of runs through this very park. The absurdity of the request hits her like a physical blow. These officers are manufacturing reasons to humiliate her, creating justifications for searches that have no basis in law or reason. This is harassment, Maya says quietly, but her hands move toward her shoelaces anyway. The crowd has grown larger, phones appearing like digital witnesses to document whatever comes next. Maya hopes their presence will provide some protection, some accountability that will prevent this situation from spiraling further out of control. She unties her shoes slowly, buying time while her mind races through possibilities. She could run, but fleeing from police would give them actual justification for chase and capture. She could scream for help, but who would intervene against uniformed officers? She could reveal her identity, but something tells her that might provoke an even more violent response. Maya slips off her shoes and stands barefoot on the cold morning pavement. The simple act of removing her footwear somehow makes her feel exponentially more vulnerable, more exposed. Miller takes the shoes and shakes them aggressively, turning them upside down as if expecting drugs to fall out like loose change. Where did you steal these? Johnson asks, examining the shoes with exaggerated suspicion. Nike Air Zoom Pegasus, retail price about $200. That's expensive footwear for someone from your neighborhood. They're mine. I bought them at the Lenox Square Nike store. Maya's voice remains steady, but her bare feet on the concrete remind her of how quickly power can be stripped away. She shifts her weight from foot to foot, the cold seeping through her soles. Lenox Square? Miller laughs. Sure you did. What did you do? Shoplift them? Use a stolen credit card? The racial implications hang in the air like poison gas. Maya feels the familiar sting of assumptions she's fought her entire life, the presumption that her success must be illegitimate, that her possessions must be stolen, that someone who looks like her couldn't possibly belong in spaces of privilege and comfort. Officer, I'm a doctor. I can afford my own shoes. Miller's expression darkens. The claim of professional status clearly irritates him, representing exactly the kind of uppity attitude he believes needs correcting. A doctor? Right. What kind of doctor? Pediatric cardiac surgeon at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. The specificity of Maya's answer gives Miller pause for exactly 3 seconds before his suspicion reasserts itself. Prove it. Prove what? Prove you're a doctor. Show me some ID, some medical license, something that backs up this story. Maya realizes she's walked into a trap. Any identification she carries will reveal her true identity, and her instincts tell her that these officers aren't ready for that revelation. But refusing to provide identification will give them another excuse to escalate. My ID is in my running belt, Maya says carefully. I'd need to reach for it. Slowly, Miller orders, his hand moving back to his weapon. Any sudden movements and we'll assume you're going for a weapon. Maya reaches toward her running belt with deliberate slowness, her movements exaggerated to demonstrate compliance. But before she can access the hidden compartment, Johnson grabs her wrist. Wait! We need to search you first. You could be hiding anything in that belt. Drugs, weapons, stolen goods. Maya's heart pounds as she realizes the officers are creating a pretext for a body search. That's not necessary. I can show you my identification right now. We determine what's necessary, Miller says, moving behind Maya. Put your hands on the hood of the patrol car and spread your legs. The command sends a chill through Maya that has nothing to do with the morning air. She looks around at the growing crowd, at the phones recording every moment, at the faces that reflect her own growing horror at what's happening. Officer, this is completely inappropriate. I'm requesting a female officer for any search. Female officer? Johnson laughs. Lady, this is what you get. Hands on the car, legs spread, now. Maya complies because she has no choice, placing her palms flat against the cold metal of the patrol car. The position forces her to lean forward slightly, making her feel even more exposed and vulnerable. Her bare feet provide no stability, no sense of being grounded. Miller approaches from behind. We're going to check you for weapons and contraband. Don't move unless instructed. His hands begin at her shoulders, pressing down with unnecessary force. Maya closes her eyes and tries to transport herself somewhere else, to her office at the hospital, to the governor's mansion, to anywhere but this moment where her dignity is being systematically stripped away. Check her hair, Johnson suggests with obvious malice. You people like to hide drugs in your hair. Miller's hands move to Maya's ponytail, grabbing it roughly and running his fingers through the strands. The intimate violation of having her hair searched by a hostile stranger makes Maya's skin crawl. She grits her teeth and endures it, knowing that any resistance will be met with escalation. Lot of hair, Miller comments, tugging harder than necessary. Could hide anything in here. Crack rocks, pills, razor blades. Maya feels tears forming in her eyes but refuses to let them fall. She won't give these men the satisfaction of seeing her break, won't provide them with the complete submission they're obviously seeking. Miller's hands move down to her athletic top, lifting the hem slightly. Need to check under here for weapons. That's assault, Maya says quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. That's police procedure, Miller responds, his hands becoming more aggressive. You got a problem with police procedure? The crowd murmurs with increasing unease. Several people have begun recording with their phones, capturing every moment of what's clearly becoming an abuse of power. Maya can hear voices in the background. This is wrong. Someone should call this in. Where's his supervisor? But no one steps forward to intervene. No one challenges the officers directly. The badge still carries enough authority to keep the crowd at bay, even as they witness what's obviously becoming a violation. Miller's hands reach Maya's running belt, the hidden compartment where her jewelry and identification wait like time bombs. His fingers probe the fabric, searching for the opening that will change everything. What's in here? He demands, his voice taking on a new edge of excitement. Miller's fingers find the hidden zipper of Maya's running belt and yank it open with violent force. The sudden motion jerks Maya forward against the patrol car, her face pressing against the cold metal as her balance fails on bare feet. Well, what do we have here? Miller's voice drips with anticipation as he probes the concealed compartment. His hands become increasingly aggressive, no longer pretending this is about contraband. This is about power, about breaking someone he perceives as too proud, too successful, too comfortable in spaces where he believes she doesn't belong. Please, Maya whispers, her voice barely audible. You're hurting me. Shut up, Johnson snarls, moving to her side. We'll tell you when to talk. Miller's exploration of the running belt becomes more invasive, his hands deliberately rough as they search through the hidden pocket. Maya can feel him finding her carefully concealed jewelry, but instead of removing it, he continues the search with increasing aggression. She's got something good in here, Miller announces to Johnson, loud enough for the crowd to hear. Real good stuff, probably stolen goods from some rich house. Maya's athletic dress catches on Miller's badge as he leans against her back, the fabric pulling tight. She feels the material strain, feels the threads beginning to give way under the pressure of his aggressive searching. The designer athletic wear that cost her $200 begins to tear at the seams. Officer, please be careful with my— I said shut up, Miller shouts, grabbing a handful of Maya's dress fabric and yanking hard to assert his dominance. The high-quality material, designed for flexibility and movement, was never meant to withstand this kind of violent manipulation. The fabric tears with a sickening ripping sound that cuts through the morning air like a scream. The tear runs from Maya's shoulder blade diagonally across her back to her waist, exposing her sports bra and a significant portion of her bare skin to the growing crowd. Maya gasps and instinctively tries to cover herself, but Miller forces her hands back onto the car with brutal efficiency. "Don't move! The suspect is attempting to resist and conceal evidence." "I'm not resisting anything!" Maya cries out, tears finally breaking free and streaming down her cheeks. "You just destroyed my dress! You're exposing me in public!" The crowd erupts in shocked murmurs and angry voices. Phones capture every moment as Maya Richardson, one of Georgia's most powerful women, stands humiliated and exposed in the place where she has always felt safest. The morning joggers, dog walkers, and tennis players have been transformed into unwilling witnesses to what's clearly becoming a systematic abuse of power. "That's what happens when you don't cooperate with police investigations," Miller says with obvious satisfaction, stepping back to admire his handiwork. Maya stands there in her torn dress, the fabric hanging in strips, trying desperately to hold the remnants together while maintaining her forced position against the car. "This is completely inappropriate," a woman in the crowd shouts. "You can't strip search someone in public like this." Miller's head snaps toward the voice with predatory intensity. "Ma'am, step back or you'll be arrested for interfering with police business." The threat temporarily silences direct protest, but the phones keep recording. Multiple angles capture Maya's humiliation, documenting every moment of her degradation in high-definition detail that will soon spread across social media platforms worldwide. Johnson produces handcuffs from his utility belt, the metal restraints glinting in the morning sun like instruments of medieval torture. Time to properly restrain the suspect for transport. "Transport?" Maya turns her head, her voice rising with genuine panic. "You're arresting me! For what crime? I demand to know what I'm being charged with." "Disturbing the peace, failure to cooperate with a lawful police investigation, resisting arrest, and now indecent exposure." Miller recites the fabricated charges like a prayer he's memorized through years of practice. "Turn around and face me." Maya slowly pivots to face the officers, still clutching desperately at the torn fabric of her dress. Her exposed skin makes her feel utterly vulnerable, stripped of the professional armor and social status that have protected her throughout her accomplished career. The approaching handcuffs represent the complete loss of control, the final surrender of her dignity to these men who seem determined to destroy her. "This is wrong," someone in the crowd calls out with increasing boldness. "You people need to stop this right now! She hasn't done anything!" Miller's response is swift and intimidating. "Anyone who continues to interfere will be arrested for obstruction of justice and aiding a criminal suspect." His voice carries the authority of someone accustomed to compliance, someone whose word has rarely been challenged in 15 years of policing. The threat creates a temporary silence among the witnesses, but their phones continue recording. Maya can see the devices capturing her humiliation from multiple angles, wide shots that show the full context of her abuse, close-ups that document the tears on her face, medium shots that capture the torn fabric and exposed skin. Johnson approaches with the handcuffs, his movements deliberate and theatrical. "Put your hands behind your back, ma'am. You're under arrest." The metal restraints click onto Maya's wrists with a finality that echoes through the morning air. The handcuffs force her to arch her back slightly, making the torn dress gap open even wider and exposing more of her sports bra to the watching crowd. Maya has never felt more exposed, more helpless, more completely at the mercy of people who seem to derive pleasure from her suffering. "Please," Maya says, her voice breaking with emotion and desperation. "I have a teenage daughter. She might see this footage on social media. Please don't do this to me. I'm begging you to show some basic human decency." Miller's response demonstrates just how far beyond basic human decency this encounter has traveled. He spins Maya around and slams her against the patrol car again, this time with the handcuffs preventing her from protecting herself from the impact. Her face hits the metal with a dull thud that sends shockwaves through the watching crowd and draws audible gasps of horror. "You should have thought about your precious daughter before you came here acting like you own this neighborhood." Miller snarls directly into her ear, his breath hot against her skin. His words carry the weight of years of accumulated resentment, of watching successful black people move through spaces he believes should be reserved for others like himself. Johnson begins photographing Maya with his personal smartphone, not the official police camera that would create an evidence trail subject to department oversight. The images he captures show her in the most humiliating position possible, handcuffed, partially clothed, pressed against a police car like a common criminal rather than the accomplished professional she actually is. Evidence documentation, Johnson explains to his partner with a barely concealed grin. But his expression tells a completely different story. These photographs are trophies, personal souvenirs of their conquest over someone they perceive as uppity and deserving of comprehensive humiliation. Maya closes her eyes tightly and tries to transport her consciousness away from this nightmare scenario. She thinks about her husband, probably reviewing policy briefings in his office right now, completely unaware that his wife is being systematically assaulted by the very officers sworn to protect and serve the citizens of Georgia. She thinks about her daughter, probably studying for finals at Harvard Medical School, trusting that her mother is safely completing her routine morning exercise. Miller returns to searching Maya's running belt with renewed aggression and obvious enjoyment of her helplessness. His hands probe the hidden compartment while Maya remains pressed against the car, unable to see what he's doing but feeling every invasive touch as a personal violation. "Jackpot time," Miller whispers to Johnson, his fingers finally closing around something substantial in the hidden pocket. He pulls out Maya's jewelry with deliberate slowness, savoring each moment like a predator displaying fresh prey to establish dominance. The Cartier watch emerges first, its $75,000 price tag immediately apparent to anyone familiar with luxury timepieces. The platinum bracelet catches the morning sunlight, sparkling like captured stars against the dark asphalt. Even Miller, despite his working-class background, recognizes quality when he sees it. "Holy Mother of God," Johnson breathes, staring at the watch with undisguised amazement. "That's genuine Cartier. Look at that craftsmanship." The diamond earrings follow next, then the wedding ring, a 3-carat masterpiece that Maya received on her 10th wedding anniversary as a symbol of their enduring love and shared success. Each piece of jewelry that hits the pavement creates a new wave of murmurs from the crowd, a new level of confusion about who this woman really is and how she could possibly afford such expensive accessories. "Where exactly did you steal these luxury items?" Miller demands, holding up the diamond earrings so they catch the light. "Cartier diamonds, Tiffany wedding ring, Swiss timepiece. We're talking about serious felony theft charges here." "They belong to me," Maya says weakly, her voice muffled by her painful position against the car. "I can prove they're legitimately mine if you'll just listen to me." "Right," Johnson laughs with genuine amusement. "And I'm the damn Queen of England." But something about the obvious quality and authenticity of the jewelry gives Miller a moment of pause. These aren't cheap knockoffs or even expensive replicas. These are genuine articles, the kind of pieces that retail for more than his annual police salary. A small, nagging doubt begins to creep into his mind, though his ego refuses to acknowledge it consciously. Maya feels her Georgia state identification card slipping from the torn fabric of her dress, the plastic rectangle sliding down her leg toward her bare feet. She tries to shift position slightly to prevent its fall, but the handcuffs and Miller's substantial weight against her back make any meaningful movement completely impossible. The official ID card lands face up on the asphalt, just inches from Miller's polished black police boots. Maya's professional state photograph stares up at him from the plastic card, along with official text that will change absolutely everything in approximately 30 seconds. Miller's boot shifts slightly on the asphalt as he adjusts his position, and his peripheral vision catches the white rectangle of Maya's state identification card lying face up on the pavement. At first, his mind doesn't process what he's seeing. Just another piece of debris from the search, another item to be cataloged and dismissed. He bends down casually to pick up what he assumes is a driver's license, expecting to find another piece of evidence to support his narrative about Maya's criminal behavior. His fingers close around the plastic card, and he glances at it with the bored expression of someone completing routine paperwork. The photograph hits his consciousness first, Maya's professional headshot, taken in the formal style reserved for high-level government officials. But it's the text below the photo that stops his world completely. "Maya Richardson, First Lady, State of Georgia." The words blur together as Miller's brain struggles to process information that contradicts everything he believed about this morning's encounter. His hands begin to tremble imperceptibly as the full implications crash down on him like a collapsing building. "What's wrong?" Johnson asks, noticing his partner's sudden change in demeanor. "What's on the card?" Miller's mouth opens and closes soundlessly like a fish drowning in air. His face drains of all color, transforming from the confident pink of authority to the ashen gray of a man whose life has just ended. The identification card falls from his nerveless fingers, fluttering back to the asphalt like a death warrant. "Miller." Johnson's voice carries a note of growing concern. "What the hell is on that ID?" Miller's voice comes out as a whisper, so quiet that Johnson has to lean in to hear him. That's the governor's wife." The words hang in the morning air like a bomb that hasn't exploded yet. Johnson's expression shifts from confusion to disbelief to dawning horror as he processes what his partner has just said. "What did you just say?" "The governor's wife." Miller's voice cracks on the words. Oh God, we just assaulted the governor's wife." Johnson snatches the identification card from the ground, his hands shaking as he studies the official state seal, the formal photograph, the unmistakable text that identifies Maya Richardson as the First Lady of Georgia. The card represents 15 years of police experience evaporating in a single moment. "This can't be real," Johnson whispers, his voice barely audible. "This has to be fake. Some kind of mistake." But even as he speaks the words, Johnson knows they're lies. The identification is obviously genuine, bearing all the security features and official seals that would be impossible to counterfeit. More importantly, everything about Maya suddenly makes sense. The expensive jewelry, the confident demeanor, the expectation of being treated with respect. Miller steps back from Maya as if she's suddenly become radioactive. His hands, which moments ago were aggressively searching her body, now hover in the air as if afraid to touch anything. The authority that has defined his identity for 15 years crumbles like a house of cards in a hurricane. "Ma'am," Miller begins, his voice cracking with desperation. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. There's been a terrible mistake, a misunderstanding." Maya, still pressed against the patrol car in handcuffs and torn clothing, turns her head slowly to look at him. Her eyes, red with tears and bright with pain, focus on his face with laser intensity. "A misunderstanding?" Maya's voice is quiet, controlled, but underneath runs a current of fury that makes Miller's blood turn to ice water. "Is that what you call sexually assaulting the governor's wife in front of 50 witnesses?" The crowd, which has been murmuring with increasing agitation, suddenly erupts as someone shouts, "Did she just say governor's wife? Oh my God, they just attacked the governor's wife!" The information spreads through the gathered witnesses like wildfire, each person passing the shocking news to newcomers until the entire crowd understands the magnitude of what they've just witnessed. Phones that were already recording suddenly became precious evidence of the most catastrophic police encounter in Georgia's recent history. Johnson fumbles with his keys, his hands shaking so violently he can barely manipulate the handcuff mechanism. "Please, Mrs. Richardson, let me get these restraints off you immediately. Don't touch me." Maya's command stops Johnson cold. "Don't you dare touch me again." Miller tries to remove his police jacket to cover Maya's torn dress, but she recoils from him with such obvious revulsion that he stumbles backward. Every gesture of attempted assistance only emphasizes the horror of what he's done, the irreversible nature of his actions. "Please," Miller begs, his voice breaking completely. "Please don't tell the governor. We can work this out. We can make this right." Maya slowly turns to face both officers fully, her dignity intact despite her torn clothing and obvious trauma. When she speaks, her voice carries the authority of someone accustomed to being heard, someone whose words shape policy and determine careers. "Make this right?" Maya's laugh is devoid of humor, sharp as broken glass. "You want to make this right? You handcuffed me, tore my dress, photographed me half naked, and conducted an illegal search of my body in front of dozens of witnesses. You called me racial slurs and threatened to plant evidence on me." Each word hits Miller like a physical blow. He can see his career dying, his pension evaporating, his family's future crumbling with every syllable that comes from Maya's mouth. "We didn't know," Johnson starts to protest. "You didn't know because you didn't care to know." Maya cuts him off with surgical precision. You saw a black woman exercising in a space you thought she didn't belong, and you decided to teach her a lesson. The only mistake you made was choosing the wrong black woman. The crowd has grown to over 100 people, all recording, all witnessing the complete destruction of 2 police careers in real time. Social media notifications begin pinging as the first videos upload, as hashtags begin trending, as the story starts its viral journey across the internet. Miller drops to his knees on the asphalt, the full weight of his actions finally crushing him completely. His 15-year career, his reputation, his family's security, everything destroyed in 20 minutes of unchecked hatred and abuse of power. The first video uploads to Twitter at exactly 7:23 a.m., 90 seconds after Maya's identity is revealed. The 30-second clip, captured by a morning jogger, shows Miller on his knees in front of a half-dressed black woman in handcuffs. The caption reads, "Atlanta police just assaulted the governor's wife, #justice for Maya, #Atlanta police scandal." Within 3 minutes, the video has been retweeted 847 times. Within 5 minutes, it reaches 50,000 views. By the time Maya finally gets her hands free from the handcuffs, her assault is trending #1 on Twitter nationwide. Maya stands beside the patrol car, holding the torn remnants of her dress together with trembling hands. Someone from the crowd, a young mother with a jogging stroller, offers her a sweatshirt, which Maya accepts gratefully. The simple act of kindness from a stranger feels like water in a desert after the cruelty she's just endured. "Thank you," Maya whispers, pulling the borrowed sweatshirt over her torn dress. Her voice is hoarse from crying, but her dignity remains unbroken. Even in her trauma, she maintains the composure that has carried her through years of political and social challenges. Miller and Johnson stand frozen beside their patrol car, watching their lives disintegrate in real time through the screens of dozens of phones. Neither officer has any idea how to handle a situation that has spiraled so completely beyond their control. The morning that began with such confidence in their authority has transformed into a nightmare beyond their worst imaginations. Maya reaches for her phone with shaking hands. Her first call needs to be to her husband before he learns about this through social media or news reports. The governor of Georgia should not discover his wife's assault through Twitter feeds or cable news alerts. "Maya, honey, you're supposed to be running. Why are you calling?" Her husband's voice carries the comfortable familiarity of 23 years of marriage, completely unaware that their world has just exploded in the most public way possible. "David," Maya's voice breaks on his name. "Something terrible has happened. I need you to send security to Piedmont Park right now. I've been assaulted by Atlanta police officers." The silence on the other end of the line stretches for 5 seconds that feel like hours. When the governor finally speaks, his voice has transformed from husband to leader, from private citizen to the most powerful man in Georgia dealing with an unprecedented crisis. "Are you hurt? Are you safe right now? Do you need medical attention?" His questions come rapid fire, the product of crisis management training and genuine terror for his wife's well-being. "I'm safe now, but David, there are videos, lots of videos. This is going to be everywhere in minutes. We need to prepare for the worst media storm of our lives." While Maya speaks to her husband, her assault continues its viral journey across social media platforms with unstoppable momentum. TikTok users begin creating reaction videos, their faces showing genuine shock and outrage at the footage. Instagram stories spread the news through networks of influence, reaching millions of followers within minutes. Facebook groups dedicated to social justice share the footage with increasingly outraged commentary and calls for immediate action. The hashtag #Governor'sWifeAssaulted becomes the top trending topic on Twitter globally, surpassing major international news events. #Atlanta police brutality follows closely behind, accumulating hundreds of thousands of posts per hour. #Maya Richardson Justice begins gaining momentum as users learn her name and professional background. Miller's personal phone begins buzzing incessantly with notifications, missed calls from his wife, text messages from friends and family who've seen the videos, voicemails from reporters who've somehow already obtained his contact information through public records searches. Each notification feels like another nail in the coffin of his former life. Johnson tries desperately calling his police union representative, but the call goes directly to voicemail. He tries again, then again, growing more frantic with each failed connection. The union that has protected him throughout his career seems to have vanished precisely when he needs them most. Even his union representative, watching the videos spread across social media, knows this case is too toxic to touch. At the Atlanta Police Headquarters downtown, Chief Robert Wilson's assistant bursts into his office without knocking, violating protocols in her urgency. "Chief, you need to see this right now. It's about Miller and Johnson." She hands him her phone, showing the viral video that's been viewed 2.3 million times in the past 8 minutes. Chief Wilson's face goes completely white as he watches his officers systematically assault and humiliate the most powerful woman in Georgia. His phone immediately begins ringing. The mayor's office, the state capitol, CNN, Fox News, the FBI field office in Atlanta. Each incoming call represents another layer of accountability he'll have to face. "Get Miller and Johnson back to headquarters immediately," Wilson barks to his assistant while reaching for his crisis management manual. "A full internal affairs investigation starts right now, and get our legal team on a conference call within the hour." But it's already far too late for any meaningful damage control. The video has escaped the bounds of social media and entered the realm of mainstream news coverage. CNN breaks into regular programming with a breaking news alert featuring dramatic red graphics. The Chiron reads, "Georgia police assault governor's wife during morning jog." Maya finally gets into her own Mercedes, the borrowed sweatshirt providing some measure of dignity as she drives home with a hastily assigned police escort. Different officers, ones who treat her with the deference and respect she should have received from the beginning. The irony is not lost on her that she needs police protection from police officers. Behind her, Miller and Johnson remain in Piedmont Park, surrounded by growing crowds and an increasing number of news cameras that have arrived with stunning speed. Neither man has any idea what to do next, how to begin addressing the catastrophe they've created through their own actions. Miller's wife, Linda, calls from their suburban home, her voice shrill with panic and confusion. "Derek, what the hell did you do? The neighbors are calling me non-stop, saying you're all over the news for attacking some woman. There are people gathering outside our house with signs." "Linda, take the kids and go to your mother's house immediately, right now. Don't pack anything, just leave." Miller's voice is mechanical, distant, like a man reading his own obituary while still breathing. "Derek, what did you do to us? What did you do to our family?" Linda's voice rises to near hysteria as the reality of their situation begins to sink in. Miller hangs up without answering because there is no answer that makes sense, no explanation that justifies the complete destruction of everything he's worked for throughout his adult life. His 15-year career, his family's financial security, his children's futures, all destroyed in 20 minutes of unchecked hatred and abuse of power. Johnson fares no better with his personal relationships. His girlfriend texts him with obvious terror, "Is this you in these videos? People are saying you sexually assaulted the governor's wife. I'm scared. Don't come home. My parents say I can't see you anymore." The woman he planned to propose to next month has just cut him out of her life based on 60 seconds of viral video footage. The international news media begins picking up the story with remarkable speed, transforming a local incident into a global symbol. BBC News runs the headline, "American police officers assault governor's wife in public park." Deutsche Welle covers it under U.S. police brutality reaches new heights. The story becomes a symbol of American dysfunction, broadcast to audiences around the world who already view American policing with suspicion. Mayor Patricia Williams watches the viral video in her office, surrounded by her hastily assembled crisis management team. "How bad is this situation?" she asks her communications director while reaching for her emergency response protocols. "This is Rodney King bad. This is George Floyd bad. This could literally burn the city down if we don't handle every aspect of this perfectly from this moment forward." The mayor immediately calls a press conference for 2 p.m., giving her staff exactly 6 hours to craft a response that might prevent riots. Her team begins drafting carefully worded statements, preparing detailed talking points, coordinating with federal authorities who will inevitably become involved in a case of this magnitude and visibility. At Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, Maya's colleagues watch the videos circulating through hospital staff WhatsApp groups in stunned silence. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, Maya's longtime partner in the cardiac surgery program, stares at her phone in complete disbelief. "This is our Maya. This is Dr. Richardson. How could this happen to someone like her?" The hospital's public relations department goes into full crisis mode, fielding dozens of calls from reporters seeking comments about their prominent surgeon's public assault. The institution where Maya has saved hundreds of children's lives suddenly finds itself part of a national news story with unpredictable implications. Maya's daughter calls from Harvard, crying hysterically after seeing the videos shared throughout her campus. "Mom, everyone here is sharing videos of you being attacked. All my professors are talking about it. Are you okay? Should I fly home right now?" "Stay in school, baby," Maya says, her maternal instincts overriding her own trauma and exhaustion. "I'm going to be fine. Your father and I will handle this situation appropriately." But even as Maya tries to comfort her daughter with reassuring words, she knows that handling this will require a level of public strength she's not sure she possesses. The videos of her humiliation will exist forever, archived on servers around the world, available for viewing by anyone with an internet connection for decades to come. Miller attempts to call his elderly parents in rural Georgia, hoping to warn them before they see the news coverage. But when his father answers the phone, the disappointment in his voice is utterly crushing. "Son, I already saw it on the television. What you did to that woman. That's not how your mother and I raised you to treat people. Dad, you don't understand the full situation." "I understand plenty, Derek. I understand my son became the kind of man I'm ashamed to call family." The line goes dead, and Miller realizes he's lost more than his job and career. He's lost his identity, his relationships, his place in the community where he's lived his entire life. By 9 a.m., exactly 2 hours after the assault began, #JusticeForMaya has been tweeted 4.7 million times. The story dominates every news cycle, from morning talk shows to cable news networks to international broadcasts. Maya Richardson's assault has become more than a local incident. It's a symbol of everything wrong with policing in America. And in the governor's mansion, Maya sits in her private bathroom, still wearing the borrowed sweatshirt from a stranger's kindness, staring at her reflection in the mirror and trying to understand how a routine morning jog became a national crisis that will define the rest of her life. Special Agent Sarah Carter of the FBI's Civil Rights Division receives the call at 9:47 a.m. while reviewing case files in her Atlanta field office. Her supervisor's voice carries an urgency she's rarely heard in 15 years of federal law enforcement. "Chen, drop everything. We need you on the Richardson case immediately. This is now a federal civil rights investigation with direct oversight from Washington." "The governor's wife's assault? I saw it on the news feeds." Carter's mind races through the implications. Cases involving elected officials require delicate handling, but cases involving police brutality against elected officials' family members represent uncharted territory. "It's bigger than news feeds now. The Attorney General's office called personally. They want a full civil rights violation investigation, pattern and practice review, and complete audit of the Atlanta PD's use of force protocols. You're the lead investigator." Chen arrives at Piedmont Park within 30 minutes, her federal credentials clearing a path through the growing crowd of reporters and protesters. The scene remains largely intact. Miller and Johnson still present. The patrol car still positioned where Maya's assault occurred. Dozens of witnesses still providing statements to arriving investigators. She approaches the two officers with the methodical precision that has made her one of the Bureau's most successful civil rights investigators. Miller and Johnson stand beside their patrol car like condemned men awaiting execution, their earlier confidence completely evaporated. "Officers Miller and Johnson, I'm Special Agent Carter, FBI Civil Rights Division. You're both subjects of a federal investigation for potential violations of Title 18, Section 242, deprivation of civil rights under color of law." Miller's voice comes out as a croak. "Agent Carter, there's been a misunderstanding. We didn't know who she was." Chen's expression doesn't change as she studies both men with the analytical gaze of someone trained to read deception. "Officer Miller, are you telling me that Mrs. Richardson's civil rights depend on her identity rather than her humanity?" The question hangs in the air like a blade. Johnson shifts uncomfortably, realizing that every word they speak is being recorded, cataloged, and will likely be used against them in federal court. "That's not what I meant," Miller backpedals desperately. "I meant we were responding to a legitimate call about suspicious activity." Chen produces a digital tablet and shows them a preliminary timeline her team has already constructed. According to radio logs, the initial call came in at 6:18 a.m. Mrs. Richardson didn't begin running until 6:25 a.m. Would you like to explain how a suspicious activity report preceded the activity itself? The question reveals a level of federal preparation that terrifies both officers. The FBI has clearly been working this case since the first viral videos appeared, marshaling resources and evidence with frightening efficiency. Chen interviews witnesses methodically, building a comprehensive record of events. Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman who waved to Maya during her run, provides crucial testimony about Maya's routine presence in the neighborhood. "She's been running this route for years," Mrs. Henderson explains, her voice shaking with emotion. "She's always been polite, always said good morning. Those officers targeted her for no reason except the color of her skin." Dr. Patterson from Emory University corroborates Maya's professional standing. Dr. Richardson is one of Atlanta's most respected pediatric surgeons. She's delivered medical lectures, participated in community health initiatives, and saved countless children's lives. The idea that she would be involved in criminal activity is absurd. Chen's team collects physical evidence with forensic precision. Maya's torn dress, photographed from multiple angles, clearly shows the extent of the officer's aggression. The expensive jewelry scattered on the asphalt demonstrates the implausibility of theft allegations. Most importantly, the numerous phone videos provide an unedited record of the entire encounter. Meanwhile, at FBI headquarters, forensic analysts begin examining Miller and Johnson's employment records, looking for patterns that might indicate systematic civil rights violations. What they discover shocks even experienced investigators. Miller's 15-year career reveals a disturbing pattern of complaints, all involving black citizens, all systematically dismissed by department leadership. Janet Williams, a high school teacher, filed a complaint in 2019 after Miller conducted an aggressive traffic stop that left her humiliated in front of her students. The complaint was dismissed as unsubstantiated, despite witness testimony. Marcus Johnson, a bank vice president, complained in 2021 about being handcuffed and searched after Miller claimed he fit the description of a robbery suspect. The robbery had occurred in a different city, making the stop completely unjustified. Again, the complaint was dismissed. Keisha Davis, a nurse at Grady Hospital, reported Miller for conducting an inappropriate body search during a traffic violation in 2022. She specifically alleged that Miller touched her inappropriately while claiming to search for weapons. The complaint disappeared into the department's bureaucracy without meaningful investigation. Chen's team identifies 47 complaints against Miller over his career, with an overwhelming majority involving black women. The pattern reveals not isolated incidents of misconduct, but systematic predatory behavior protected by institutional indifference. Agent Carter, her forensic analyst reports, Miller's complaint record shows clear evidence of sexual predation disguised as police procedure. He specifically targets black women in affluent neighborhoods, using pretextual stops to justify inappropriate searches. The analysis extends to Johnson's record, revealing his role as an enabler and co-conspirator. While Johnson has fewer direct complaints, witness statements consistently place him as present during Miller's most egregious violations, providing backup and legitimacy to illegal searches. Chen interviews other victims as word spreads about the federal investigation. Women who had been too intimidated to come forward initially begin sharing their experiences, encouraged by Maya's prominence and the FBI's obvious commitment to pursuing justice. Dr. Angela Washington, a psychiatrist at Emory University, describes an encounter from 2020. "Miller stopped me outside my office building, claiming someone reported suspicious activity. He made me remove my jacket and shoes, then searched through my purse while making comments about expensive items he claimed I couldn't afford. I felt violated and humiliated, but who was going to believe me against a police officer?" Lisa Thompson, a social worker, recounts a 2021 incident where Miller forced her to submit to a body search after claiming her car matched the description of a vehicle involved in a crime. He made me spread my legs and put my hands on his patrol car while he searched me inappropriately. When I asked for a female officer, he told me I didn't get to make requests. Each new victim's account adds another layer to the federal case, transforming Maya's assault from an isolated incident into evidence of systematic civil rights violations spanning multiple years. Chen's investigation reveals the institutional corruption that enabled Miller's behavior. Police Chief Wilson's signature appears on dismissal letters for numerous complaints against Miller, often with minimal investigation. The pattern suggests either gross incompetence or active cover-up. Internal emails obtained through federal subpoenas reveal disturbing communications between department leadership. In one email, Chief Wilson refers to civil rights complaints as nuisance paperwork and instructs supervisors to handle these quickly and quietly. Another email discusses strategies for protecting good officers from frivolous accusations. The police union's role becomes increasingly clear as Carter's team examines financial records. Union lawyer David Sterling received substantial payments for defending Miller against previous complaints, creating a financial incentive to suppress allegations rather than address misconduct. Sterling's legal strategies, revealed through court filings and internal documents, consistently involved attacking victims' credibility rather than addressing officers' conduct. His standard approach included investigating victims' personal lives, questioning their motivation for filing complaints, and using their race and socioeconomic status to undermine their credibility. Chen interviews retired Atlanta PD officers who express relief that someone is finally investigating the department's culture. Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, who retired in 2020 after 25 years, speaks candidly about the toxic environment. Miller was untouchable, Rodriguez explains. Everyone knew he had problems with black women, but nobody wanted to challenge him. He had connections, union protection, and a reputation for retaliation against officers who crossed him. Rodriguez describes instances where she witnessed Miller's inappropriate behavior but felt powerless to intervene. The department culture protected guys like Miller while silencing officers who tried to do the right thing. It's a relief that someone with real authority is finally listening. The investigation expands to include patrol car dashboard camera footage that the department initially claimed was malfunctioning during Maya's assault. FBI technical specialists recover the supposedly corrupted data, revealing that the cameras were deliberately disabled before Miller and Johnson approached Maya. Digital forensic analysis of Miller's personal devices yields shocking evidence of his predatory mindset. Text messages between Miller and Johnson, sent just hours before Maya's assault, reveal their intent to target black women in affluent neighborhoods. "Let's go hunting for some uppity black bitches today," Miller texted at 5:47 a.m., 40 minutes before Maya began her run. Johnson's response was equally damning. "I love it when they cry and beg. Makes my day." The text messages provide federal prosecutors with direct evidence of premeditation and racial motivation, elevating potential charges from simple civil rights violations to federal hate crimes with significantly longer sentences. Chen's team discovers that Miller maintained a private photo collection on his personal phone, trophy images of black women he had humiliated during traffic stops and searches. The collection contains 127 photos spanning 8 years, each image showing women in degrading positions with visible distress on their faces. "This isn't policing," Carter reports to her supervisor. "This is sexual predation enabled by a badge and systematic institutional cover-up." Miller used his authority to victimize women, and the department protected him from consequences. The investigation reveals financial corruption alongside the civil rights violations. Carter's forensic accountants discover that Chief Wilson received regular payments from the police union's legal defense fund, creating a direct financial incentive to dismiss complaints against problematic officers like Miller. Bank records show Wilson received $47,000 in consulting fees from the union over the past 3 years, payments that coincided with his dismissal of serious misconduct allegations. The arrangement represents a clear conflict of interest and potential federal corruption charges. Chen's team uncovers evidence that Mayor Patricia Williams' office was aware of complaints about Miller but chose to ignore them for political reasons. Internal memos reveal discussions about avoiding negative publicity during election years by suppressing police misconduct investigations. The mayor's chief of staff specifically instructed department liaisons to minimize civil rights complaints during the 2022 election cycle, Carter's analyst reports. They were more concerned with political optics than constitutional violations. The federal investigation expands to include the training academy where Miller and Johnson received their police education. Academy records reveal a culture of racial bias embedded in the curriculum itself. Training materials obtained through federal subpoenas contain references to urban crime patterns that clearly stereotype minority communities. One training module describes black women as likely to be confrontational and require firm control, providing pseudo-academic justification for the aggressive tactics Miller employed. Chen interviews current and former academy instructors who describe a culture where constitutional rights training was treated as a bureaucratic requirement rather than essential law enforcement principles. Cadets learned that their authority was absolute, one retired instructor confides. Nobody taught them about limits or accountability. The investigation reveals that Miller's academy class included several officers who later faced civil rights violations, suggesting systematic problems in training and recruitment. Carter's team identifies patterns of misconduct that trace back to specific training cohorts, indicating institutional rather than individual failures. As the federal investigation deepens, political ramifications begin spreading throughout Georgia's power structure. Governor Richardson faces pressure to demonstrate decisive leadership while managing his personal anguish over his wife's trauma. Chen's final evidence collection includes financial records showing the full cost of institutional cover-up. The city of Atlanta has paid over $2.4 million in settlements for Miller-related complaints over the past decade, money that came from taxpayers rather than holding the officer accountable. The city essentially operated an insurance fund for Miller's victims, Carter explains to federal prosecutors. They found it cheaper to pay settlements than address the underlying problem. Chen prepares her preliminary report for Washington, knowing that the evidence she's collected will likely result in federal charges against Miller and Johnson, as well as a comprehensive consent decree requiring Atlanta PD to undergo fundamental reform under federal oversight. This isn't just about two bad officers, Carter explains to her supervisor during a secure video conference. This is about a department culture that enabled systematic civil rights violations for over a decade. Maya Richardson's assault was the inevitable result of institutional failure that reaches the highest levels of city government. The federal investigation has transformed from a single incident review into a comprehensive examination of systematic civil rights violations, corruption, and institutional failure that will reshape Atlanta's entire approach to policing and accountability. Dr. Maya Richardson sits in her attorney's office 3 days after the assault, her hands still trembling slightly as she reviews the mounting evidence that Sarah Carter's federal investigation has uncovered. Her civil rights lawyer, Marcus Williams, spreads photographs and documents across the mahogany conference table like pieces of a horrific puzzle. Maya, what the FBI has found goes far beyond what happened to you, Williams explains, his voice carrying the weight of someone who has spent 20 years fighting police misconduct cases. Agent Carter has documented a pattern of systematic abuse that spans Miller's entire career. Williams produces a thick file containing victim statements from 27 women who have come forward since Maya's assault went viral. Each account follows a similar pattern: pretextual stops, inappropriate searches, racial harassment, and institutional cover-up. Listen to this, Williams says, reading from Dr. Angela Washington's sworn statement. Miller forced me to remove my blouse during what he called a weapons search outside my medical office. He photographed me in my bra, claiming it was for evidence. When I filed a complaint, Chief Wilson dismissed it as unsubstantiated without interviewing a single witness. Maya closes her eyes, recognizing the familiar pattern of humiliation she experienced. How many others? 27 confirmed victims so far. The FBI believes there may be more who haven't come forward yet. Williams slides another document across the table. This is Miller's complaint history, 47 allegations over 15 years, all dismissed or buried by department leadership. The numbers hit Maya like physical blows. 47 women subjected to Miller's predatory behavior while the system that should have protected them actively participated in covering up his crimes. Her assault wasn't an aberration. It was the culmination of decades of institutional failure. There's more, Williams continues, producing a manila envelope marked Federal Evidence Confidential. Agent Carter's team recovered Miller's personal phone records and found something that will ensure he never walks free again. Williams shows Maya screenshots of text messages between Miller and Johnson, sent just hours before her assault. The messages reveal not just racial hatred, but explicit planning for sexual assault disguised as police procedure. "We're going hunting for some rich black cunts today," Miller's 5:47 a.m. message read. "Time to teach these bitches where they belong." Johnson's response was equally damning. "My favorite part is when they beg and cry. Should we record this one for later?" Maya stares at the messages in horror, realizing how close she came to something far worse than what she experienced. These men weren't just racist cops having a bad day. They were sexual predators who had turned their badges into hunting licenses. "They plan to record my assault?" Maya's voice barely rises above a whisper. Agent Carter believes they intended to create trophy videos, similar to the trophy photographs they've been taking for years. Your prominent position probably saved you from the worst of their intentions. They got scared when they realized who you were. Williams produces another set of documents that make Maya's stomach turn. FBI digital forensics specialists had recovered Miller's deleted photo collection, 127 images of black women in various stages of humiliation and undress, all taken during what Miller claimed were legitimate police encounters. This photo collection spans 8 years, Williams explains. Miller kept these images as personal trophies, organizing them by date and location. Some photos show women crying, others show them partially clothed after searches. All appear to have been taken without consent during police encounters. Maya recognizes the predatory pattern from her own experience. Miller's search of her body, his obvious enjoyment of her humiliation, the way Johnson photographed her half-dressed state. It was all part of a well-practiced routine of sexual violation disguised as law enforcement. What about the department's role in covering this up? Williams slides across a series of internal emails that FBI subpoenas had obtained from city servers. The correspondence reveals a systematic effort to protect Miller from accountability that reaches the highest levels of Atlanta's government. Chief Wilson received direct payments from the police union totaling $47,000 over 3 years, Williams explains. These payments coincided with his dismissal of serious complaints against Miller and other problematic officers. Maya reads an email from Wilson to his deputy chief. The mayor's office wants Miller's complaint file cleaned up before the election. Handle it quietly and make sure there's no paper trail that leads back to City Hall. Another email, sent just 6 months before Maya's assault, shows Wilson instructing supervisors to minimize contact with civil rights groups and avoid creating discoverable records when handling misconduct complaints. They knew, Maya says, her voice hardening with rage. They all knew what Miller was doing, and they actively helped him continue doing it. Williams nods grimly. The FBI has identified at least 12 city officials who had direct knowledge of Miller's pattern of abuse and chose to ignore or actively suppress it. This goes all the way to the mayor's office. Agent Carter arrives at the law office carrying additional evidence that further demonstrates the scope of institutional corruption. She produces academy training records that reveal how officers like Miller were systematically taught to view constitutional rights as obstacles rather than principles. Miller's training cohort received instruction that explicitly described black women as combative and likely to resist authority, Carter explains. The academy actually taught officers that aggressive tactics were necessary when dealing with minority citizens in affluent areas. Chen shows Maya a training manual that contains a section titled Dealing with Uppity Suspects. The manual instructs officers to establish dominance quickly and use all available tools to ensure compliance, language that provided academic cover for the tactics Miller employed. The training materials essentially gave officers permission to do what Miller did to you, Carter explains. The department created a culture where constitutional violations were not just tolerated, but actively encouraged. Maya learns that the Academy's bias training consisted of a single 4-hour session taught by an instructor who had previously been sued for racial discrimination. The training emphasized officer safety and authority while barely mentioning citizens' rights or appropriate use of force. Chen produces financial records showing that Atlanta has paid over $3.2 million in settlements related to Miller and officers from his training cohort over the past decade. Rather than addressing the underlying training problems, city leadership chose to treat settlement payments as a cost of doing business. The city's risk management department actually budgeted for these settlements, Carter reveals. They found it cheaper to pay victims than to reform their training and accountability systems. Williams shows Maya additional evidence of Miller's predatory behavior that extends beyond his police duties. Bank records reveal that Miller used department resources to conduct background checks on women he encountered during traffic stops, using their personal information for stalking purposes. Miller accessed DMV records for 17 women he had stopped, checking their home addresses, employment information, and family details, Williams explains. This represents a serious federal crime independent of his civil rights violations. Chen's investigation discovered that Miller had driven past the homes of several women he had previously searched, sometimes months after their encounters. Security camera footage from neighborhood surveillance systems showed his patrol car conducting slow drive-bys past victims' residences during off-duty hours. He was stalking these women, Carter states flatly, using his position to gather personal information and then using that information to continue victimizing them psychologically. Maya realizes she needs to review her own home security systems, understanding that Miller's obsession with his victims might extend to her family. The violation she experienced in the park was just the beginning of what could have been years of harassment and intimidation. Chen presents evidence of witness intimidation that occurred immediately after Maya's assault went viral. Miller's associates within the department attempted to pressure park witnesses into recanting their statements or claiming they didn't see the events clearly. 2 witnesses received calls from unknown individuals suggesting they might face legal problems if they continued cooperating with federal investigators, Carter reports. We've traced those calls back to phones registered to Atlanta PD officers who work with Miller. The intimidation efforts extended to Maya's medical colleagues at Children's Healthcare. Hospital administrators received anonymous calls questioning Maya's mental stability and professional competence, obvious attempts to undermine her credibility before federal prosecutors build their case. Someone called the hospital's board of directors claiming you had a history of making false accusations against male colleagues, Williams explains. Hospital security traced the call to a phone registered to Johnson's girlfriend. Chen's team discovered that the police union had hired private investigators to conduct opposition research on Maya and other victims who came forward. The investigators attempted to find evidence of past trauma, mental health issues, or personal problems that could be used to question victims' credibility. They were building files to destroy the victims rather than addressing the officers' misconduct, Carter explains. This represents a systematic effort to obstruct federal justice that will result in additional charges against union leadership. Maya learns that her assault has triggered federal investigation into similar patterns in other Georgia police departments. Carter's team identified training materials and complaint dismissal patterns that suggest Miller's department wasn't unique in protecting predatory officers. We're finding similar training protocols and cover-up mechanisms in departments throughout the state, Carter reports. Your case has opened the door to examining systematic civil rights violations across Georgia's law enforcement community. Williams presents Maya with medical records documenting the physical and psychological trauma she suffered during the assault. Emergency room physicians found evidence of bruising consistent with aggressive handling, while psychological evaluations confirm post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms. The medical evidence alone would support federal assault charges, Williams explains. Combined with the civil rights violations, Miller is looking at decades in federal prison. Chen provides Maya with an update on the federal grand jury proceedings that will determine formal charges against Miller, Johnson, and potentially other officials. The grand jury has heard testimony from multiple victims and reviewed thousands of documents collected during the investigation. The grand jury will likely return indictments next week, Carter predicts. We're recommending charges under multiple federal statutes, including civil rights violations, sexual assault, stalking, witness intimidation, and public corruption. Maya realizes that her morning jog has triggered the largest civil rights investigation in Georgia's recent history. While the personal cost has been enormous, the evidence mounting against Miller and his enablers suggests that justice might finally be possible for all his victims. The Georgia State Capitol's press conference room fills beyond capacity on a crisp Tuesday morning, exactly 2 weeks after Maya Richardson's assault. Representatives from CNN, Fox News, BBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, and dozens of international outlets position their cameras with military precision. The story has transcended local news to become a global symbol of American institutional failure and the power of individual courage. Maya enters the room wearing a navy blue power suit that transforms her from victim back into the formidable professional who has shaped Georgia policy for years. Her diamond wedding ring catches the camera lights, the same ring that was scattered on asphalt 14 days ago. The visual symbolism is intentional and powerful. Behind her walk Governor David Richardson, FBI Special Agent Sarah Carter, and federal prosecutor James Martinez. The presence of federal authority signals that this press conference will deliver more than statements. It will deliver justice in real time. Maya approaches the podium with the measured confidence of someone who has spent years commanding respect in operating rooms and boardrooms. When she speaks, her voice carries the authority of truth backed by overwhelming evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today not as the governor's wife, but as a survivor of sexual assault perpetrated by officers sworn to protect and serve the citizens of Georgia. The reframing is deliberate and devastating. Maya has chosen to define Miller's actions as sexual assault rather than police misconduct, elevating the moral stakes and legal implications of the encounter. 2 weeks ago, Sergeant Derek Miller and Officer Robert Johnson conducted a systematic campaign of racial and sexual violence against me while I exercised my constitutional right to jog in a public park. What happened to me was not an isolated incident. It was the culmination of 15 years of predatory behavior enabled by institutional corruption at every level of Atlanta's government. Maya produces a digital tablet and begins presenting the evidence that Agent Carter's investigation has uncovered. The first image shows Miller's trophy photo collection, 127 pictures of humiliated black women that span his entire career. Sergeant Miller maintained a personal collection of photographs showing black women in various states of undress and distress, all taken during what he claimed were legitimate police encounters. These images represent 15 years of sexual predation disguised as law enforcement, documented evidence of systematic abuse that city leadership chose to ignore. Gasps ripple through the press room as journalists realize they're witnessing the systematic destruction of 2 police careers and an entire department's credibility. Maya continues with prosecutorial precision, her medical training evident in her methodical presentation of evidence. Agent Carter's investigation revealed that Miller sent text messages hours before assaulting me, describing his intent to target rich black cunts and expressing excitement about making women beg and cry. Maya reads the messages verbatim, her clinical delivery making the words even more shocking. She produces enlarged screenshots of the text conversation between Miller and Johnson, displaying them on large monitors for the cameras to capture. These messages were sent at 5:47 a.m. on the morning of my assault. They proved that my victimization was premeditated, racially motivated, and sexually violent in nature. The direct quotes eliminate any possibility of misinterpretation or media spin. Miller's own words, preserved in digital evidence and displayed for global consumption, condemn him more effectively than any prosecutor's argument could achieve. These messages prove that Miller didn't make a mistake or exercise poor judgment. He executed a carefully planned assault designed to humiliate and violate a black woman who he believed had forgotten her place in his version of social hierarchy. Maya transitions to the institutional failures that enabled Miller's behavior, producing Chief Wilson's emails about protecting good officers from frivolous accusations and minimizing civil rights complaints during politically sensitive periods. Chief Robert Wilson received $47,000 in payments from the police union while systematically dismissing complaints against Miller and other problematic officers. He chose personal financial gain over constitutional protection, creating a system where predators could operate with complete impunity. Maya displays bank records showing the payments to Wilson, along with email timestamps that correlate financial transactions with complaint dismissals. The documentary evidence eliminates any possibility of coincidence or innocent explanation. Internal emails obtained by federal investigators show Wilson instructing supervisors to handle complaints quickly and quietly and to minimize contact with civil rights organizations. He wasn't trying to ensure justice. He was actively obstructing it. The financial corruption adds another dimension to the scandal, transforming it from simple police misconduct into systematic public corruption involving multiple levels of government and creating federal RICO implications. Maya reveals that Mayor Patricia Williams's office was aware of Miller's pattern, but chose political expediency over victim protection. Internal emails show that the mayor's office instructed police leadership to clean up Miller's complaint file before the 2022 election, prioritizing political appearances over constitutional rights. She displays email correspondence between the mayor's chief of staff and police leadership, showing explicit instructions to suppress civil rights complaints during election cycles. The political calculations are laid bare in their own words. The mayor's office treated civil rights violations as public relations problems rather than serious crimes. They were more concerned with poll numbers than with the women Miller was victimizing throughout our community. Each revelation builds toward a crescendo of institutional failure that reaches the highest levels of Atlanta's government. Maya has transformed from victim into prosecutor, systematically destroying the careers and reputations of everyone who enabled her assault. 27 women have now come forward to describe similar assaults by Miller. 27 mothers, daughters, professionals, and community members who trusted that their constitutional rights would be protected by those sworn to serve them. Maya plays audio recordings of victim testimony, letting the women's voices speak directly to the assembled media. Dr. Angela Washington's account of being forced to remove her blouse during a fabricated weapon search. Lisa Thompson's description of inappropriate touching during a pretextual traffic stop. Janet Williams's humiliation in front of her high school students. The cumulative effect is overwhelming and emotionally devastating. Maya isn't just describing her own assault. She's revealing a systematic pattern of abuse that has victimized dozens of women over more than a decade, while city leadership actively covered it up. The FBI's investigation revealed that Atlanta Police Academy training materials explicitly described black women as combative and likely to resist authority, providing academic justification for the aggressive tactics Miller employed against his victims. Maya produces the training manual section titled Dealing with Uppity Suspects, reading portions aloud that demonstrate how institutional racism was codified into official police education and used to justify constitutional violations. The department didn't just fail to stop Miller, it actively trained officers to view women like me as threats requiring aggressive physical control. My assault was the predictable result of systematic institutional racism embedded in official training protocols. She displays pages from the training manual on large screens, allowing cameras to capture the explicit racial language used in official police education materials. The visual evidence makes denial impossible. This training manual was used to educate hundreds of Atlanta police officers over the past decade. Miller wasn't acting alone, he was implementing lessons taught by the department itself. As Maya speaks, her phone begins buzzing with notifications that her staff monitors in real time. Social media explodes with reactions to her revelations. #Justice for Maya trends worldwide within minutes. #Miller must fall begins accumulating millions of mentions. International news outlets interrupt regular programming to cover her press conference live. Maya's presentation builds toward the moment everyone has been waiting for. The announcement of criminal charges that will finally hold Miller accountable for his crimes and send a message to law enforcement across the nation. Federal prosecutor James Martinez will now announce the charges filed this morning against the officers who assaulted me and the officials who enabled their criminal behavior. Prosecutor Martinez approaches the podium carrying a sealed federal indictment, his presence signaling that Maya's assault has triggered the full weight of federal justice. His reputation for prosecuting high-profile corruption cases adds gravitas to the moment. This morning, a federal grand jury returned a 43-count indictment against Sergeant Derek Miller, Officer Robert Johnson, Chief Robert Wilson, and Union Attorney David Sterling. The number of charges shocks even experienced journalists who cover federal prosecutions regularly. 43 federal counts represent the potential for multiple life sentences, the complete destruction of everyone involved in Maya's assault and its systematic cover-up. Miller faces charges including civil rights violations, sexual assault, stalking, witness intimidation, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and violations of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act for using department resources to stalk his victims. Martinez details how Miller's text messages provide evidence of premeditation and racial motivation, elevating simple assault charges to federal hate crimes with significantly enhanced penalties under federal sentencing guidelines. Johnson faces charges as an accessory to civil rights violations, conspiracy to obstruct justice, aiding and abetting sexual assault, and evidence tampering. His photographs of Mrs. Richardson constitute federal crimes independent of his role in the assault itself. The charges against Johnson eliminate any possibility that he can claim ignorance or passive participation. His active role in documenting Maya's humiliation makes him equally culpable under federal conspiracy statutes. Chief Wilson faces public corruption charges, conspiracy to violate civil rights, obstruction of justice, and racketeering for operating what federal investigators have determined was a criminal enterprise designed to protect corrupt officers. Wilson's financial relationship with the police union provides federal prosecutors with clear evidence of corrupt intent, transforming administrative negligence into systematic criminal behavior under federal RICO statutes. As Martinez announces the charges, FBI agents execute arrest warrants simultaneously across Atlanta in a carefully coordinated operation designed for maximum public impact. Miller, who has been under federal surveillance since Maya's assault, is taken into custody at his suburban home while news cameras capture his perp walk in federal handcuffs. The timing is perfectly orchestrated for maximum symbolic impact. As Maya reveals the evidence of Miller's crimes to the world, viewers watch him being arrested in real time on split-screen television coverage. Johnson's arrest occurs at the police station where he reported for duty, unaware that federal agents were waiting for him in the parking lot. Security camera footage shows him being led away in handcuffs past colleagues who refuse to make eye contact, understanding that their own careers may be in jeopardy. Chief Wilson's arrest happens during an emergency city council meeting, where he was attempting to spin the scandal as the result of a few rogue officers acting independently. Federal agents interrupt his presentation to serve the arrest warrant, creating dramatic footage that dominates news cycles globally. Maya watches the arrest notifications arrive on her phone as she stands at the podium, each message providing her with a sense of closure that seemed impossible 2 weeks ago when she stood handcuffed and humiliated in Piedmont Park. These arrests represent more than individual accountability, Maya continues, her voice strong with conviction. They signal that systematic civil rights violations will be met with federal consequences, regardless of rank, political connections, or institutional protection. Maya announces that the federal investigation has triggered a comprehensive consent decree requiring Atlanta PD to undergo fundamental reform under federal oversight for a minimum of 5 years. The department that protected Miller will be dismantled and rebuilt with constitutional protections as its foundation. The Department of Justice will oversee a complete restructuring of Atlanta police training, complaint handling, and accountability systems. The culture that enabled my assault will be eliminated and replaced with genuine constitutional policing that serves all citizens equally. Maya's final statement transforms her from victim to advocate, using her prominence to demand systematic change that will protect other women from experiencing the trauma she endured. I will use every resource at my disposal to ensure that no other woman suffers what Miller did to me. My assault ends today, but my fight for justice has just begun. 18 months after her assault, Dr. Maya Richardson laces the same running shoes she wore that terrible morning and prepares to reclaim Piedmont Park. The federal trials are over. The verdicts are final. Justice, imperfect but real, has been served. The morning sun filters through the same magnolia trees that witnessed her humiliation, but everything else has changed. A bronze memorial bench now sits where Miller forced her against the patrol car, inscribed with the names of his 27 confirmed victims and the words, "For survivors of police sexual violence, your courage changed everything." Maya runs her fingers across the polished metal, reading each name aloud like a prayer. Dr. Angela Washington, Lisa Thompson, Janet Williams, women who found their voices because Maya found hers first. Their testimony had been devastating at trial, each account adding another year to Miller's sentence. The trials had been a media sensation that captivated the nation for 8 months. Miller, facing overwhelming evidence, attempted to plea bargain, but federal prosecutors rejected every offer. They wanted a public trial that would expose the full scope of his crimes and send an unmistakable message about accountability. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Judge Patricia Henderson sentenced Miller to 45 years in federal prison without possibility of parole, effectively a life sentence for a man already in his 40s. "Mr. Miller," Judge Henderson had said at sentencing, "you transformed a badge of honor into a weapon of terror. You betrayed every oath you swore and violated the constitutional rights of dozens of women. This sentence reflects not just your crimes, but society's determination that such behavior will be met with the full force of justice." Johnson received 25 years as an accessory and conspirator. His cooperation with prosecutors, providing detailed testimony about Miller's methods and the department's cover-up culture, earned him a reduced sentence but not redemption. He would die in federal prison, his name forever linked to one of Georgia's worst police scandals. Chief Wilson's corruption trial had been equally devastating. Prosecutors proved that his financial relationship with the police union created a systematic conspiracy to violate civil rights. His 30-year sentence at age 62 meant he would never taste freedom again. Maya picks up her pace as she approaches the exact spot where Miller first ordered her to stop. A small plaque marks the location. Here on this morning, courage confronted corruption, justice prevailed. The Georgia Historical Society had insisted on the marker, recognizing Maya's assault as a turning point in civil rights history. The institutional changes have been profound and lasting. The Atlanta Police Department underwent complete federal restructuring, with every officer required to complete 40 hours of constitutional rights training and implicit bias education. Use of force policies were rewritten with citizen oversight, and a civilian review board now investigates all misconduct complaints. Most importantly, the Georgia State Legislature passed the Maya Richardson Act, requiring body cameras for all police interactions and mandating federal oversight for any department with a pattern of civil rights violations. The law has become a model for police reform nationwide. Maya's phone buzzes with a text from her daughter at Harvard Medical School. "Watching your interview on CNN. So proud of how you turned trauma into change. Can't wait to follow your example when I'm Dr. Richardson Jr." The media attention has never fully subsided. Maya's story became the subject of a best-selling book, an HBO documentary, and countless academic studies on police reform. But she has used the platform carefully, always focusing on systematic change rather than personal celebrity. She established the Richardson Foundation for Police Accountability, using her civil settlement money, $75 million from the city of Atlanta, to fund legal representation for police brutality victims nationwide. The foundation has already helped prosecute dozens of cases involving officer misconduct. Maya stops to stretch at the same bench where she prepared for her run that morning 18 months ago. Now other joggers wave respectfully, recognizing her but respecting her privacy. The morning routine has resumed, but the community understands what happened here and why it must never happen again. The federal consent decree has transformed Atlanta policing in measurable ways. Complaint filings increased 400% as citizens gained confidence that reports would be investigated fairly. Officer misconduct cases decreased 60% as better training and accountability created a culture of constitutional policing. The new police chief, appointed through a national search with community input, implemented community policing programs that have rebuilt trust between officers and citizens. Crime rates have actually decreased as community cooperation with law enforcement improved. Maya's rehabilitation from trauma has been challenging but successful. Months of therapy helped her process the violation and regain her sense of safety in public spaces. She speaks openly about PTSD to reduce stigma around police trauma and encourage other victims to seek help. Her marriage to Governor Richardson survived the crisis, though not unchanged. David's political career was initially threatened by the scandal, but his steadfast support for Maya and police reform ultimately strengthened his position. He won re-election by the largest margin in state history, with particularly strong support from women and minority voters. Maya passes the playground where children now play under the watchful eyes of community police officers trained in de-escalation and cultural sensitivity. The transformation is visible in small interactions, officers helping elderly citizens, engaging positively with teenagers, treating everyone with dignity regardless of race or class. She thinks about Miller's current reality in federal prison. Reports indicate he has been repeatedly assaulted by other inmates who view crimes against women as particularly despicable. Prison justice operates by its own brutal code, and Miller's celebrity as a corrupt cop who targeted innocent women makes him a constant target. The irony isn't lost on Maya that Miller now experiences the powerlessness and vulnerability he once inflicted on others. She takes no pleasure in his suffering, but she recognizes the poetic justice of his situation. Maya completes her 5-mile route and pauses at the memorial bench one final time. Fresh flowers have been placed there by other survivors who make pilgrimages to honor the women who spoke truth to power. The simple gesture shows that Maya's courage has created ripple effects she may never fully understand. Her phone shows missed calls from reporters wanting comments on the Supreme Court's decision to hear a case involving police-qualified immunity. Maya's assault and the subsequent federal prosecutions have influenced national legal precedent, making it easier to hold officers accountable for constitutional violations. Maya checks her fitness tracker, heart rate optimal, pace strong, mental health resilient. The woman who was broken down by Miller's assault has been rebuilt stronger, her voice amplified by trauma transformed into purpose. As she walks toward her car, Maya sees a young black woman beginning her own morning run. Their eyes meet for a moment, and Maya nods encouragingly. The simple exchange represents everything that has changed. Women can exercise in public spaces without fear, protected by laws and institutions that have been reformed through courage and determination. Maya drives home past the police station where Miller once worked. A large banner announces, "Constitutional Policing, serving all citizens with dignity and respect." New leadership, new training, new culture, all born from one woman's refusal to accept injustice. At the governor's mansion, Maya's husband greets her with coffee and the morning news. Headlines report on the latest police reform initiatives inspired by her case. The trauma that began 18 months ago has become a catalyst for change that will protect generations of women. Maya Richardson, who began that terrible morning as an unsuspecting jogger, has become something greater, a symbol of resilience, a voice for justice, and proof that individual courage can reshape institutions and protect the vulnerable. Her run is over, but her impact will endure forever. If this story of justice and transformation moved you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. What other stories of courage overcoming corruption would you like to see? Your support helps us continue telling stories that matter.